Smarte Geschäftsideen und wie du sie erfolgreich machst, das ist die Mission dieses Podcasts. Für die Sommerpause in diesem Jahr habe ich mir was Neues überlegt. Wir hatten bisher in diesem Jahr nämlich, wie ich finde, die kontroversesten Meinungen, witzigsten Geschäftsideen und stärksten Stimmen, die wir je im Podcast hatten. Und die gibt's in den nächsten Wochen kuratiert auf die Ohren, während du hoffentlich auf einer Sonnenliege liegst und etwas machst, das auch wichtig ist für erfolgreiche Geschäftsideen, den Kopf resetten. Los geht's diese Woche mit einem Ausschnitt aus der meistgehörten Folge überhaupt, das kontroverse, völlig unorthodoxe Marketing von Liquid Death. Wenn du es nicht kennst, Liquid Death hat eine Milliardenmarke aus dem einfachsten Produkt aller Zeiten gemacht, Wasser. Das geht nur mit herausragendem Marketing und Andy Pearson von Liquid Death verrät dir jetzt, wie sie genau ihr Marketing machen. Übrigens, unser Newsletter hat keine Sommerpause, da kriegst du weiter wie gewohnt frische Geschäftsideen und alle Tipps, wie du sie erfolgreich machst. Melde dich an auf digitaleoptimisten.de/newsletter. Und jetzt viel Spaß, bleib optimistisch und bis nächste Woche.
I think one of the fun things about building this brand is we're doing it live. We're doing it in front of everyone. We're not, it's not like we're starting from this theoretical place and it's like, okay, well now we have this brand and it means it's this and these are our brand values. And so that means we're going to make this ad and then we're going to make this campaign and do this. Instead, we're kind of, and then a lot of times what, like I alluded to before, is there's a lot of pre-testing oftentimes that goes into marketing where you bring some storyboards to a bunch of people in a focus group room and you get their opinions first. And of course they're not going to fully get it and it's going to be presented poorly. And that process naturally makes good ideas die. And instead, what we're doing is like I said, we're just putting stuff out there as quickly, as cheaply as we can, having as much fun as we can, doing that all simultaneously. And then we learn from the reaction from it as it goes out. And so I'm personally learning as we're going. And I kind of, maybe like a year ago or so, I was just thinking about this and I was like, man, we're Liquid Death. We kind of have some characters that we actually write as. So I'm a writer by trade, a copywriter. And we kind of have these different voices that sometimes we'll slide into of like, we have this like evil corporation voice that it's bent on global domination. And it's the satire of, it's basically like what actual corporations are trying to do, but if we actually just said it out loud and it's a really fun voice to write in. And I was like, right, we're playing this character of something. And the more I thought about it, I was like, that's what we're doing. Liquid Death is not this brand that has these rigid brand rules and we're trying to follow, color inside these certain lines. We're a character, and the best part about a character is a character is free to move into a lot of places. If you think about your favorite TV shows, whatever you watch, the ones that are character driven, we're fascinated by the character behind it because the character is a complex human being that can, go into dark places, but also has levity to them. And the best part about a character that you love is when they actually surprise you, right? You have a character that you think you understand, and then on a show, suddenly they'll do one thing, they'll do the opposite of what the audience may be expecting. And it totally makes sense for the character, but it's surprising to us as the audience. And so I think Liquid Death is this really nuanced, complex character that we're building that we give free rein to move into all these places. And so in the same way that you would be writing on a television program, I think we kind of realized that we can write ideas for this character. So what I mean by that is if you were in a writer's room on a TV show and you had a character and the idea was like, oh, the main character's car gets towed in this episode. And it's like, okay, well, how would this character react to having, their car gets towed and means they have a breakdown. And, as a writer, you would most likely have a really immediate reaction like, oh, the character would do this. And so now I can really easily write that, right? And so for us, what it means is when we're coming up with ideas, it's like, well, what would the character of Liquid Death do in that situation? If we're doing a partnership with somebody or we want to promote, launch a new product or whatever. It's like, well, how would the character of Liquid Death approach that thing? And there's usually kind of like a single right answer. And so that's the cool thing is, as we're looking at stuff, we're like, oh, that's what Liquid Death would do. And so it makes it very easy to be decisive because we all understand this character we're writing for. And so in opposition to the way that like advertising, when you're concepting stuff as a creative, a lot of times you're going, what could we do? And you have this big like open-ended, and you're like, well, we could do this and we could do this. And you kind of are in this, like, I talk about this like creative wilderness where you're just kind of groping around for ideas. But as Liquid Death, I've gotten to the point where we're like, well, what would Liquid Death do rather than what could we do? Mm-hmm. And there, like I said, you land on an answer, and so all of us can point to, we're like, yeah, that's what we would do. And then we just go off and do it. And so it makes our lives way easier because we inherently understand this character that we're building rather than a brand. And I think it's also how we like live on social media, right? Brands need to have the ability to be this more interesting, malleable thing that can react with people and people can play along with it. And we are very playful with our fans, and we do stuff to interact with them. So it feels like there's a real back and forth with them. We're a real entity rather than just this like esoteric idea of a brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And characters have range. You mentioned that, right? So if I think about Michael Scott from The Office, obviously he's this huge tool, this weirdo, but he has these moments of sentimentality, right? Where he connects with people. And Walter White, or I don't know, whatever you want to, Sopranos or they have range. And I heard a story where you had a task of doing something really serious, of writing I'm not sure if it was an obituary. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but a big fan passed away, and you had to do something in the tone of the brand that is so over the top and so sarcastic. So, I mean, how is that even possible? Yeah.
So it was my, it was like, I'd just been on board for a month and a half, and there was a fan who had passed away. Her name was Gabby. She passed away from ovarian cancer. And I like still get chills, like literally right now, just kind of thinking about this. But she'd passed away, and her brother came back to us and was like, hey, it's the year anniversary of Gabby's passing, and we're doing a fundraiser. Would you guys be willing to make a post to try to raise money? And so I'm brand new, and I'm trying to sort out what Liquid Death even is. I'm trying to wrap my brain around it. And I had to write a heartfelt but funny post about a fan who had died. And, it was like to thread that needle and to make it make sense for everybody, and to be respectful, not just respectful, but to be joyful about celebrating someone's life. We wrote something, we posted it, and I remember it was on a Saturday, and I was just in my backyard, and I happened to open my phone and see that it had gone up, and it was just a flood of people reacting to it and commenting and posting and sharing their own experiences. And I just started bawling. This brand that, we're, as you said, feels silly and over the top and satirical and ridiculous, but then can flex and has a real human side to it as well. And you saw people having this real human reaction to it. It was just really beautiful. And it goes back to this idea that I think there's this real human and heart side behind everything we do. There's a real, as I said, joy and exuberance. It should feel like there's people behind it making this thing, and it's not this faceless corporation. We're real people putting ideas out in the world, and we have real emotions, and the brand can express that as well. And it's something I want to be a part of. It's a brand that, and a brand in a community, and things that I want to put out in the world. And as I said, it's like, sometimes it's bigger than, it sounds silly, but it's like, it's bigger than selling canned water. It's totally, really, putting humor and joy out in the world is something that everybody needs. And that kind of that experience really was edifying to me.
I started from the bottom, now I'm here. Every day I'm hustling, I ain't got no fear. I had a dream, I had a vision. I turned my ambitions into a mission. I put in the work, I made the sacrifice. Late nights and early mornings, I'm paying the price. I faced the challenges, I overcame the hate.